What does the U.S. moving its embassy in Israel really mean? The panel tonight. Mike Morey is here. He's a former communications director for Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer. Alice Stewart is a CNN political commentator, former communications director for Republican presidential candidate Senator Ted Cruz. Paris Denard is a CNN political commentator and member of President Trump's re-election advisory board, and CNN global affairs analyst Kim Dozier. Great to see you guys. Let's get to it. Kim, first to you. Many presidents, I mean, we played this over and over, and we all know this, of course. Many presidents have promised this, everyone since Clinton. Promise that this is the move that they're going to make, and every time also then sign the waiver promising, but then citing national security concerns for not moving it right then and there. What's different now?
They made the promise holding it out as something for Israel to work towards, to make concessions towards a Palestinian state. That didn't happen in this case. Actually, the whole issue of Jerusalem, even the Palestinian question, had become rather moribund with the Syrian crisis right next door, more than 500,000 people killed. This move may ironically end up recharging the whole crisis across the Arab world. It had been displaced, but these images coming out of Gaza, it may be, as the White House says, Hamas's intent to stir this kind of unrest, very cynically, but I think it's going to have an effect in the weeks and months to come.
This is an issue, though, that crosses party lines. This is one issue, maybe the singular issue that your former boss, Chuck Schumer, applauds the president for. Why did it take Donald Trump to get it done, Mike?
So look, I think Donald Trump has thrown, as he always does, caution to the wind. Now, there are obviously domestic political considerations that come into play when it comes to things like Israel, the capital of the state of Israel. And I think why president after president has sort of kicked the can on this decision is largely because they understand the actions that you see happening today were bound to happen when you do it. So granted, Israel has the right to decide where it wants to place its state capital. The United States has the right to decide whether to recognize that or not. Most presidents didn't because they sort of saw it as an opportunity when we have an actual peace negotiation, a bargaining chip. That's now off the table for good or worse. I'm not sure. I'm not the table making these sort of war and peace decisions, but I would say that when you remove one negotiating tool from the table, that's one less thing to give or to get later on. And so I'm not sure what it actually means for the long-term prospects of peace, but what you're seeing take place today is exactly why president after president had decided to kick the can on this decision.
You know, for decades, the United States has sought to be or portray itself as the honest broker in peace negotiations. With this move, with this official opening today, can the United States still say that?
Absolutely, and that's clearly what is being outlined by the administration. Several questions were asked at the press briefing today about that, and we expect in the next few months for the peace plan to be unveiled. It is in the works, and this was part of the process. And for your former boss, Chuck Schumer, to come out and praise the president for this, I think that shows tremendous support for this idea, understanding that there were going to be conflicts and there was going to be some tension, but this is part of an ongoing peace process. I have faith and trust that that is part of the long-term plan. And more than anything, I think the president deserves credit for this is a promise kept, and he made this promise on the campaign trail. Evangelicals came out in full support for him for this reason. But the clashes we anticipated, but I think long-term peace is going to be in the cards.
The only thing I would caveat that, and I respect that opinion, but the thing would concern me is that I have not seen a single instance in which this president of the United States has done things with sort of this strategic long-term vision. And I think that, yes, it was a campaign promise. Yes, he made this move to fulfill that campaign promise. But I don't know if it's really part of some master peace plan.
But is it strategic enough to say 3 decades... Decades have gone by, and the same position has brought no change, and this is something different. A la North Korea, does that strategy apply here?
I think the strategy does apply here, and I think for your former boss Schumer to come out and say something, say that there was a positive thing, a positive step, shows the bipartisan nature of this. But strategically thinking, for decades, people have proposed the same caution of saying we shouldn't move the capital. They didn't do it, and we saw no progress. We've had no peace. So President Trump says, let's try something different. Let's try something different, not on the end of my term in office, but on the beginning of my term in office, and work towards peace from that way. We can hope that this will bear some positive fruits to have peace in the Middle East finally.
Look, and Kim, we can all debate the impact this has, and the world waits to see, right? We waits to see what shakes something loose to try to get people back to the table. But when the White House says that let's acknowledge reality, that's a good place to begin, which is acknowledging reality, which they say is moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Do they also need to acknowledge the reality where there is no peace process right now? I mean, he puts Jared Kushner in charge of it, along with basically like mowing the lawn and 12 other things, handling the economy and getting us prison reform. Thank you, Paris. Thank you for the backup. But there's no peace process. And Jared Kushner today saying that he believes that peace is still within reach. I mean, if we're going to acknowledge reality, let's really acknowledge reality.
Well, the officials I've spoken to have said what they hope this will do is put pressure on the Palestinian authorities, sending Mahmoud Abbas a message that time is running out and that with each month that he doesn't say yes to some sort of an agreement, his territory is getting smaller. I just spoke to a senior administration official in the past hour who said even East Jerusalem could still be on the table in a future negotiation. So they're not closing doors. What I think they're discounting, though, is that they could be very much reducing the Palestinian authorities' room to maneuver because of Hamas gaining strength right now.
But the former ambassador to Israel under Obama, Dan Shapiro, he basically kind of, I mean, the former U.S. ambassador to Israel under Obama, I'll say again, he wrote this: nothing about the embassy's location prevents the emergence of a shared city with two capitals, a necessary part of a two-state solution. Inadvertently or not, Trump has opened the door for a much more frank discussion about an eventual Palestinian capital. I mean, it seems that Dan Shapiro, and he went on, that was like thread 4 of 75 when he was making his point on this. But it sounds like he's saying this is refreshingly honest.
Certainly, and the fact that we have other nations now announcing that they're moving their embassy into Jerusalem, I think that goes to show that there's going to be more support for this idea. And as we've said, nothing has worked so far to bring about peace in the region. So this might be part of a process that will lead to peace.
But you're afraid you're afraid the domino effect.
I'm afraid of the domino effect, and I'm truly afraid that this is not some really thought through strategic imperative of the president, because I haven't seen that yet. I don't see it with China, as we've witnessed in the last 24 hours. I haven't seen it with most things that he's been engaged in. Now, again, if he is somehow able to turn the tide on decades worth of failure in peace negotiations because he is recognized Jerusalem as the capital, then I'll be the first one to cheer about it. But I haven't seen any evidence thus far that gives me any confidence in this president's ability to actually negotiate war and peace.
So hopeful Mike Morey is not. Let's see how he feels about the next segment, though. Donald Trump campaigned on a promise to put America first and make America great again. So why is he trying to save jobs in China? Help me with this one again. The panel returns next.